Paul is the VP of Innovation and Industry Sector here in Northeast Ohio. Wonderful. Thank you, Paul, for sharing, and the floor is yours.
Bonjour, c'est avec grand plaisir que je vous parle aujourd'hui du secteur de la fabrication de points solides en pleine croissance de l'Ohio. Nous sommes convaincus que cela montrera une excellente opportunité de développer votre fabrication ici. Now, I'll continue the rest of my presentation in English. Thanks for making the time to be with us today. Mindy pointed out a little bit earlier kind of the size of Ohio, but to give perspective for the group, if you look at Ohio, our gross domestic product in 2020 was over $700 billion a year. That's $700 billion with a B. So if you look at Ohio as a country, you know, we'd rank in the range of Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Switzerland, the Netherlands, Belgium. Quite substantial, and I think that that's something a lot of people overlook. So you look at that little red state in the United States, and we carry a disproportionately large element of particularly manufacturing in this. And then, as you can see in another map on the top of the slide, where Ohio, our gross, let's go back. With our GDP represents about 40% of that $700 billion. And to drill down a little bit further, when you look at what just advanced materials manufacturing, so that's plastics, rubbers, elastomers, composites, that's about $10 billion in regional turnover, and accounts for 41,000 jobs, an average of $55,000 in wages per employee. So very strong, very concentrated, global in scope, and if you look at that GDP that comes out of this region, I think I'd also point out about 20% of that is exported. So to what you'll see a little bit further on and how it relates to our value proposition, we already have a very strong import-export structure that's located here, and we leverage it quite well in Ohio and nationally in the US and internationally. Where we focus a lot of that work is in manufacturing is in these sectors, and these represent where Jobs Ohio and Team NEO focus a lot of our energies. And, you know, like any enterprise, you want to always leverage and build on your strengths. And these are the ones that, frankly, we are advantaged versus the rest of the United States, as well as globally. And if you take that a step further, the way that we look at growing Ohio and helping our companies grow in Ohio, the ones that are here and the one that choose to relocate here, is we look throughout the entire value chain. So looking through raw materials, you know, if you look from the top of the chart down, you look at raw materials, you move into people that make chemicals, plastics, metals, all of these advanced building blocks, basically these materials that we use. And then ultimately we leverage those into globally manufactured producers. And of course, we have a large number of brand owners that are located in Ohio and Northeast Ohio. So it enables us to build a very tight circular manufacturing value chain, and it makes it very efficient in terms of talent, in terms of innovation, in terms of just growing commerce. And in today's times, particularly where we're seeing kind of a unprecedented shift in how we look at supply chains, we have a very concentrated supply chain here that we can leverage, and frankly has helped a lot of our companies here manage through the challenging and uncertain times that we have of all of these fundamental shifts in how goods are made and serviced going forward. So if you look at this region, you know, there's about almost 3,000 petrochemical and downstream manufacturers in the region. And I've circled our little part of the world in Northeast Ohio, where you see the majority of these companies are located. And when you look at both the size and the diversity and the breadth and depth of where we fit in this supply chain, this is probably the strongest region of any place else in the United States as it relates to adding value to materials going forward. And I'll wait for my slide to catch up here. There we go. And if you look at chemical manufacturers, again, the same, you have a very strong concentration here. And these are being people that make base chemicals. So they would be solvents, they could be ceramic substrates, they could be, basic composite chemicals. When you look at people that are doing plastics converters, these are the people that are doing injection molding, extrusion, thermoforming, blow molding, rotational molding. If you were to dig deeper into this data, you would see that this is the strongest and the largest concentration of people that are converting plastics and that are, as you'll see in the next slide, that are converting rubbers as well. Those people that are making base rubbers as well as base the rubber components going forward. And then when you move out to synthetic raw materials and resins, those are made here. And I hope you can't hear the people lawn mowing outside of my door right now. Sorry, can't prevent that. Some of the companies that are located here, there's what I'm not going to walk you through all of these names today, obviously, but we'll make these slides available to everyone later on so you can look at that and give you a feel for the size and strength. And what you'll see here is really a blue chip roster of really major manufacturers, both domestically and folks that are very strong internationally in terms of how they export products to the world. A little bit more relevant to our French colleagues here, and if I had known we had some of the German colleagues here, we could do the same for you. We've done that in the past when I've done work in talking about metal fabrication in this region. But here you can see some of the major French companies that have chosen to locate here. And what you'll see is really a very strong concentration in Northeast Ohio. And as I get a little bit further on in the presentation, you'll see why that is. And I think, when I think about the people from the clusters that are participating here, when you look back at the number of companies that are here, the resources that we have to drive innovation and new product development and new market development here, there's a reason for that. And it's because of this concentration that it is. And, again, at your leisure, you can go through these and look at all of the names of all of the French companies that are located here. And again, as I talked about the value chain, these companies and corporations go across that entire value chain, from raw material suppliers to chemical suppliers. You'll see people like Fives here, who are major metal fabricators and assemblers that are working globally. They have quite an operation here. So again, you can do your own homework, but you can see that we're quite proud about the relationships that we have in working with French manufacturers and having them decide to grow their operations here in the US. And, some of the underpinnings of that, as the world, is really thinking about supply chains and how do we manage those. When I look at the businesses that I run, it's how you manage your enterprise risk going forward from many different perspectives. But one of the fundamental things that we discovered about 8 or 10 years ago is the fact we have very large shale and natural gas liquid deposits here. So from a chemicals and a materials standpoint, particularly as it relates to, thermoplastics and elastomers and composites, we're developing a strong cost advantage here, as well as a plentiful and sustainable supply of these materials going forward. And what that's driven is tremendous investment in this region. So if you can see my pointer move, and someone just give me a thumbs up if you can see my pointer move here a little bit. Okay, so that right now, in the past 9 years or so, we've had over $91 billion, and that's billion with a B, of investment just in Ohio in kind of helping to build out the harvesting of these materials. And then when you shift over to nationally, as you move down the value chain for making these derivative chemicals and plastics, you look at the people that I mentioned earlier, these plastics converters, what that's driven nationally, now these are not Ohio numbers, nationally, is over, $250 billion of investment in these places. So that we continue to see more and more projects come here and people looking internationally to develop their assets in the US. And I would point out that this $200 billion nationally, about 65% of that is foreign investment that's coming into the US. That's over 60%. And the other thing, when you look at this investment in that converters now are making, so they have this plentiful raw material, they have a very strong and flexible supply chain that they can work with, it's driving a lot of further investment in the people that convert these chemicals and specialty materials into end-use products. You can't read it here because it's too small, but at your leisure you can read it. But Ohio is the third state here in terms of the largest investment of plastics conversion in the United States. And now, again, if you look at just Northeast Ohio, so this is just our little quarter of the world, over the past 8 years or so, we've had almost 10, and this is in the advanced materials sector alone, okay, just to emphasize. We've had about $10 billion of capital investment. So we've created 23, almost 24,000 new jobs, which accounts for over $1 billion in payroll. So we're quite, again, I think all of the things that come into play, okay, if my screen will catch up. And when you add on to that, the fact that from a logistics, so we've talked about kind of the fundamental strengths of the companies and the supply chains that are here. Talked about, the ability to leverage those complementary supply chains going forward. Now, when you look at working with customers, to develop materials, but also to get materials to them, you've got a large highway system that is this is a focal point in the eastern US for that. You've got strong rail and intermodal connections. We have a number of ports, as Mindy pointed out earlier, on Lake Erie that serve both national and international markets. We have large commercial airports. And I think one of the other things that you note here, a large number of foreign trade zones. So as a manufacturer, when I look at the flexibility and ability that a foreign trade zone enables me to do, so if you're, companies in Europe looking to locate here, can really consider leveraging a foreign trade zone because it enables you to get the best of both worlds, to serve your domestic markets, but also to serve international markets as well, but leverage the manufacturing strengths that are located here. And another area that of course, is a major issue for talent. We're blessed here in Northeast Ohio. I think at last count, when you look at the university level and when you look at the community college level and the trade college level, we have about 42 institutions that are in our little part of the world. And if you look at just from the ability to leverage those, and this is for the advanced manufacturing sector, these are now coming out of the university segment. We have about 1,000 employees a year, or potential employees a year, I should say that, really smart students, very capable people that come out of our talent pipeline every year. So I think that that's one of the other reasons when you look at companies that are looking to expand here and grow here, is that you've got a tremendous talent pool that can be tapped. So when you look at that collectively, what you see is the value proposition that we bring to advanced materials. I'll start at the upper right-hand corner, is that proximity to markets. So you've got 60% of consumers within 500 miles of this region. So it makes for quick and easy innovation, to develop new products, to transport new products back and forth. And it just drives what I like to call a virtuous cycle in manufacturing to continue to grow. You go to the lower right-hand corner and strong export potential. As I said, we already export a lot out of this region. You know, when you look at the 700 or probably the $200 billion GDP that comes out of this region, 40 billion is manufactured goods, and 20% of that is exported. So we're very good at doing that. I've just talked about the skilled labor and higher education that we have here, tremendous talent pool to tap. And then when you look at improved manufacturing efficiency, you know, you have a strong raw material base, you have a strong network and a supply chain base here for making derivative chemicals, and then which you convert into plastics. We've got strong converted products. One of the things that we'll talking about, I won't be talking about it today, but we have here is innovation clusters that we have chosen to nurture and develop in Team Neo. So right now we manage and are managing partners in the additive manufacturing cluster for Northeast Ohio. We also have a smart manufacturing cluster, which is, you know, IIoT, Industry 4.0, kind of pick your terminology, but it's all about how you leverage artificial intelligence and robotics to make manufacturing more efficient, which is going to be an important thing going forward as we have this challenge around finding skilled, trained talent. So what we see now is a shift for companies to help mitigate that challenge to look at automation in conjunction with continuing to develop their skilled talent going forward. So it just gives us a strong fundamental value proposition to help continue to build on this very strong base that we've developed already. And I think the other thing, you know, it's one thing to have it and to want to grow it, but you also have to have the mindset and the ability to look forward and making sure that we're positioning ourselves to continue to grow, to continue to be sustainable, and continue to develop further this capability. So as I noted earlier, we have this shale gas development, and the natural gas liquids is going to provide a strong advantage going forward. You know, right now, Shell Chemical, you know, international Anglo-Dutch company, is just in the process of completing a $6 billion investment right over the Pennsylvania border from here in Ohio. And we've, you know, collaborated with them a lot to make that investment. And they're doing that because of the value proposition that I've shared with you. In terms of renewables, you know, we have a lot of the manufacturers in the supply chain, be it solar power or wind power, alternative fuels, bio-based fuels. A lot of that development is going on in this region. As it relates to the circular economy, we've got a lot of efforts going on right now in terms of recyclability, sustainability, bio-based polymers and materials going forward. As it relates to transportation in terms of EVs or electric vehicles, you know, LG's just made a tremendous investment working with GM, building a battery facility here. As you probably read in the news, Foxconn has just acquired an electric truck manufacturer here. And now they announced yesterday that they're looking to now begin to roll out 3 electric vehicles that they've been producing in other parts of the world. So they're going to be looking to leverage that asset going forward. And it's because of that other capability. Another thing I would point out is we have a very strong fuel cell coalition and cluster that's also located here. And part of that's helped drive, I think, the interest in leveraging the manufacturing capabilities for electrical vehicles. You know, in terms of sustainability and resistance, as you look forward, you know, just a tragic impact globally with COVID. But, you know, when you look at things like the Texas freeze or the chip shortages, computer chip shortages, all of those things are beginning to converge, and people are really looking at Ohio and Northeast Ohio as a place where you can mitigate and build and adapt a capability to help work against these kind of major supply chain challenges. Workforce, I've already talked to you about the workforce. I can tell you that the state of Ohio, Jobs Ohio, our partner, Team NEO, has a tremendous effort in terms of how do we strengthen the talent pipeline, how do we direct more what the universities and trade schools are looking at in terms of focusing their training and development to make it better aligned with the skills gap that we have. Our research team has done a tremendous job in analyzing and quantifying the skills gap that exists in the region. So what that does is helps our university and manufacturing partners identify those programs and training to fill those gaps. And then, as I mentioned earlier, robotics and IoT. We have our smart manufacturing cluster, which continually focuses on, how to use robotics and advanced intelligence. Now kind of the buzzwords are also big data and analytics to be able to grow this sector and these industry sectors. So like my colleague Mindy, merci beaucoup. And if you have any questions, I think I gained us a little bit of time today, so we can go from there.